have to be live here too. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's 8:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. That's what time it is where I am. But wherever you are, it's Mental Health Monday time. So go ahead and check in with your green hearts because we are live in the light room. All right. We are live right now in the light room. Let me go ahead and turn this on to public so that when you make your comments on this live, we can see who said what. Welcome to Mental Health Monday. Welcome to April 1st. This is not an April Fool's. We are live. We are here. I hope you have shared the live. I hope you've been talking about it. I hope you've been excited about this conversation. I am. We are. Let me go. We got this set to public. So now you can comment, you can join in, check in with your green hearts. We are now live with Mental Health Monday. I am your host, Marquita Dorsey, mental health advocate and coach. Let me clean that a little bit, just a tad bit more. All right. I am your host, Marquita Dorsey, mental health advocate and coach. I am absolutely elated to have you here today. Go ahead and check in with your green hearts. Share this live. Share it in your Facebook group. Share it in your text message. Share it with your family, your friends. Share it with people you know. If you know people, that's who you should be sharing it with. Tonight, we're talking about family matters. We're talking to a school counselor and a professional a licensed professional counselor. So we have an expert in the room. We have somebody who knows what they're going to be talking about, and also she's a parent, right? And I just want to make everybody aware of the fact that you don't have to be highly credentialed to understand dealing with mental health. You don't have to be highly credentialed to know what it looks like when you're not doing well and when somebody else is not doing well. But you do need to be highly credentialed to, diagnose, treat, efficiently support. That's why we have Mental Health Mondays bi-weekly at 8:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. All right. So we're here. We're live. We're live now. Go ahead and share the live. My guest is already in the green room. She's already prepared to have this conversation with us tonight. So go ahead and check in. Check in, check in, check in, check in. We are live. Right? We are live. How was your day? How was your day? Hope you had a good weekend. Hope you had a good Monday, right? I did some spring cleaning. Took me 2 days to get it done, but I got it done. I did some spring cleaning for myself, and now I'm chilling. Now I am chilling here with Mental Health Monday, ready to talk to you about family. You know, man, social media. I don't want to blame social media. I'm not going to blame social media, right? It's an app, it's a tool, it's a resource. There are people who have been helped in all kinds of ways in the social media space, right? We're also going to be honest about those things that hinder us in this social media space. Back in our day, as we would say, back in our day, when somebody said something about you, by the time it got to you, it could have been exactly what they said or not. By the time they got it to you, probably didn't even matter. The sting from it probably wasn't as strong anymore. But when you go on Facebook and somebody posts something and they say something and it hits you in your heart immediately, you can feel that immediately. Like Darius said on Mental Health Monday, there's my mother, the other week, he said when he was younger, he worried about being bullied while he was in school, right? So for a certain amount of time, for certain hours of the day, you go back and forth with your classmates, your schoolmates on being bullied. But now it follows you home, right? You have access to these phones. You have access. The children have access to tablets. There's so much access to information, so much access to other people's thoughts. And it has an effect on us, whether we know it or not, whether we acknowledge it or not. And so family, my voice as a mother, my voice as an auntie, my voice as a cousin needs to be stronger than any other voice that would try to tear down anybody else that's connected to me that I call family. And so we're going to talk about it tonight. Go ahead and share this live. Get your people on here. Get your people in here. Check into the light room. If this is your first time, welcome. I hope it's not your last time, right? Just moving forward, note the replays will be available on YouTube only, not on Facebook anymore. So if you're not live, you can't get your question answered in real time. So you want to catch us on the live, right? So we're going to go ahead and have this conversation. I'm going to go ahead and bring her into the light room. Remember, you can place your comments. You can post your comments, read them out. We will respond to them as we see them and as we fit. So go ahead and share this live with your family and friends. We are so happy to have you here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring her to the stage so that you can see our wonderful guests, so we can go ahead and have this conversation, right? Family matters. Family matters. Share the live. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Miss Marquita. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, I tell people now, I'm a little bit of a stalker when it comes to the social media space, but it's in a good way. I'm watching people's content, I'm watching people's commentary because it ain't always bad on social media. There are some people um, who are putting out things that are positive. There are some people showing who they are in the best ways in the social media space. And so I'm saying that to say, I get my guests from everywhere, from all places, right? But when I get guests who are relevant and real and relatable to the conversations that we have here in the light room. And so I think probably my first initial thought was, Lisa Brown from the Brown Singers. That may have been who I thought you was. then, and then I was like, I don't know. I be connecting with people. Send me a friend request. I send you one. I don't know, but somewhere the somewhere we became aligned. Somewhere we connected in the social media space. And I must say, ever since we've been following each other, sharing content in the space, I have been elated enough to ask her to reach out to her and ask her to come into this space. She's a school counselor. And so of course that was my initial thought, because I know a lot of our lives have been geared towards parents and adults, but the children have things that they struggle with too. But I wanted to find somebody who was on the inside and who could speak from those voices for those voices. And here we are tonight. So
Absolutely.
I know her from Facebook, right? So I asked her from her Facebook post, from our interactions on Facebook, if she didn't mind coming into this space and sharing her heart and her expertise. And as you can see, she did not mind. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Lisa Brown.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, coming from STL St. Louis.
Whoop, whoop. So that's how I met her, and I want to allow her the opportunity to introduce herself to you in the way that she sees fit. Remember, you can post your questions in the comments, any questions you may have, or you can share comments.
Okay, well, like Ms. Marquita shared, I am a school counselor, and I'm also a PLPC, so I'm not quite yet licensed. I am under supervision through Ms. Lena Chapman of Haven of Light. But I am a school counselor, and I've been in the profession on both sides for the last couple of years, studying and preparing myself. I've been in the school, the educational realm for the last several years, dating back, started in 2015. So just God positioning me into the school and where I am now was definitely his plan, his purpose. Um, so I am a mother. I have three children. I have an adult daughter. She is 31. And then I have two younger teenagers growing up in this generation, in this time, totally different from obviously when I grew up, obviously when my 31-year-old grew up. They're both in high school, but then I also serve as a school counselor on the elementary level.
So, y'all, she touching the people at all ages and stages in life, professionally and personally. Okay.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Thank you for your servitude as a school counselor, and thank you for your servitude as a mother. I people feel however that they feel. I do not take it lightly, the position we have as parents. When I realized what God was giving me access to, giving me the authority to do as a parent, one, I was like, you probably got a whole lot of trust in me, and I don't, God, you really trusted me here. But then two, I thought it to be a really big deal that He would trust me with a whole nother life. So being a parent is a blessing. The Bible says that children are a gift from God, and I absolutely believe that. And so, with that, such a fitting conversation that we're going to have tonight about this generation. You know,
Mhm.
these children, this generation, they this, they that, the lost generation, they've been labeled, the wayward generation, all those things that do not serve any of us well, including that generation. But I want to open up by asking you, to tell us how did you get in the space of becoming a counselor? What made you want to become a counselor?
Well, it definitely was not overnight. That's for sure. Um, I feel like I've been prepared my entire life. Um, when I continue to think about what my why is, I think about how I was the kid that didn't have a voice. So, one of my passions is giving children a space to have a voice. Um, they're the most vulnerable. A lot of times, as adults, we forget what it is to be a kid. Um, and even as a teenager, I remember my one best friend. She said, "You're either going to be a housewife or a counselor." So she was one of the ones that planted a seed as a teenager. But of course, we know that God already had a purpose and a plan. Um, I had a teenage ministry at some point, and then as years went on, I started into the schools, and I began to have I started a mentoring program, and it just kind of hit me like, this is my passion, and this is something I probably need to go back to school to get the credentials so that I can be in a space, in a place to serve and to support our youth.
Wow. We just never know, right? We just never know. You've always had the heart for it. And like you said, God just positioned you and aligned things for you to now get the credentials and be in that space to, help people. And like you said, give children a space to have a voice. And that's so, so, so important. We grew up in a space where go sit down, right? Go in the back,
Right.
grown folks are talking. Stay
Yes.
in a child's place. All those things were responses to children expressing their thoughts, expressing their emotions in our community, and to the detriment of the adults who were once those children who now don't have the ability or lack the ability to speak up for themselves in their personal lives, in their professional lives, and in their lives, period. So there is a damage. There is a damage that is done
Mhm.
when we do not allow children to have a space and a voice. And with that, as a school counselor with, protection for the children themselves, what are some things that you can share with us who are on the outside about what you see or hear and experience as you serve those elementary students?
Well, I mean, in recent time, I noticed that I see a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, obviously, in our kids. Um, just helping them to process those emotions are so huge. I can't express that enough. Um, I understand, and even going through school and being a therapist, one of the biggest things that we've been taught is our clients are our experts, or they are their own experts. They know, basically, we're to guide. And so even as a parent, I take that same mindset to help guide my children. Obviously, they can't make all their decisions. They still, you have to still sometimes set boundaries and be firm, but guiding. And so a lot of times the students I notice are still processing those emotions, and just helping them express is the most important thing. It's amazing. The youngest child that we serve is in pre-K, and they can tell you sometimes why they're upset. Um, if you would just listen, if we would just listen and help them process and help them to develop their language, they'll tell you sometimes what's going on with them. So it's important that we as caregivers are listening.
And so, I've had years of experience as a substitute teacher. And initially, I took the job as a sub because of a transition I had made. And like it was available, it was the easiest thing to do. I just took it, right? But in that, I had the opportunity to see from the inside, and to be where the children are and see what the impact teachers have um, on those children. So the bad kids, right? The ones who
Mm-hmm.
have the outbursts, the ones that are overly emotional, but they're labeled as bad kids. And sometimes those emotions are anger. Um, what are some techniques or tools, or what are some ways you can recognize that that's what's happening with this child? Is anger versus them being a bad child, and what can parents or caregivers do to support that child?
Well, we always say that every behavior is expressing some type of emotion. It's a language. It's they're expressing something. It's just us. It's up to caregivers to take the time to try to break down and figure out what are they actually trying to show us. What are they actually trying to express to us that they may not have the language to express or the words to even express. Because sometimes as adults, sometimes we can't put our emotions into words. We may not always have the words. We just may be just overwhelmed or overstimulated or frustrated. So whereas kids, they may not have the language all the time. So when you are working with your child or you're working with students, give them the moment to calm down, giving them that safe space, that safe place that, because some kids are coming from chaotic environments. Sometimes the classrooms are chaotic. And sometimes they don't have the self-regulation within to know how to calm if those things are not practiced at home. So, I know in my home, I try to keep it a peaceful environment, but every child does not come from a peaceful environment. So when they're in a classroom with over 20 something students and they're learning how to work with other kids and learning how to cooperate, learning how to share, if they already have come from a home that's chaotic and they've already come from a home that, parents are yelling, or maybe there's been some type of whatever the conflict may be, or maybe their immediate needs are not being met. And then you come to school and you already have all those issues and all those concerns that obviously you don't want children to have to face. You want them to be able to grow up in a loving environment, but that's not always the case. So school is supposed to be the second home. School is supposed to be a place where we provide that safety. We provide that support. We provide that environment. And so I do try to work with families to help them identify, not only that, share with families what I see, because sometimes kids don't feel comfortable sharing with their parents what they may share with me. A lot of times because either they may be afraid or maybe because they want to make their parents proud. So as parents, it's important to give that safe space to allow your kids to express how they feel without jumping to conclusions, without yelling and screaming, without fussing, making sure you're going in with a listening ear.
Wow, that's good. That's good. And I know a lot of parents, well, I work, I'm a single parent, I'm overwhelmed, all this and that. And I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
you, I raised my child as an unmarried woman. I don't like to say single parent because his father was present, but I raised my child, in my home as an unmarried woman. And I get it. You got to get off work, traffic, all those things. But I made I made it my business to be intentional that when I walked through my door, that my son had a different type of experience. Now I'll tell you, in the early stages of life, when I was young and growing, I didn't. I was afraid, right? I'm young. I don't know what I'm doing. This is my first child. I want to be perfect. I want my child to have everything. I want to do everything right for the child. So that creates a level of stress in the parent. You don't want people saying you don't know how to raise your kid. All these things are going on inside of you as well as the child. And so sometimes out of fear, I didn't always show up the best as a parent for my child. And I won't forget the day that I was aware that that was happening, you know. And with me becoming aware of that happening, I had to get support, right? I had to
Mm-hmm.
get support for
Right.
myself. And that's why, encouraging parents to go to therapy, encouraging parents. And not everybody will go to therapy, right? I get that. I get that. Everybody will not go to therapy. But if you will not go to therapy, at least go to YouTube, read some books, right? Talk to open-minded people, trusted people, well-studied people, people who have good hearts, people who may have done the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
That can help you and support you in a sometimes, very challenging situation. Raising children is difficult and beautiful all at the same time.
Yes.
You mess around and have more than one child, I can't even imagine. I only have one, but I can't even really just imagine having 3 and 4 different personalities all at once, including
Mm-hmm.
my own. So those were very good tools and those were very good tips that you just provided to them, allowing them space to break down some of those big emotions and they're children. I don't know how to say as a 3-year old, Mama, I'm stressed out, but I can cry.
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
can cry really loud, so that the louder I cry, the quicker you'll come to see about me. You're gonna give me juice, you're gonna give me milk, you're gonna give me something, you're gonna give me attention in some type of way. And that's what they have. That's what they have. And so encouraging parents to just become aware. Become aware.
Absolutely.
Become
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah. Community is important. And sometimes we don't always have that community. I didn't come from a extremely big family, so I didn't always have that support, especially with my first daughter. Um, but yeah, I do have access a little bit more. So knowledge is powerful, or knowledge is, helps us. It's a key. So when you're connected and you stay connected through, communities support, whether it's through your church, or whether it's through therapy, or whether it's through a friend, someone that you can talk to, someone that you can get advice from, um, saying that you need support or you need help, whatever way it looks, because we have families coming from different backgrounds, different dynamics. You have grandparents raising children now, their grandchildren. You have single parents, as you mentioned. You have families that are going through divorce. So, never think that you have to carry these weights on your own. And it's never, we should never let pride get in the way when we're at a vulnerable time where we really actually need that support. So I do get to play that key role in our students' lives, because I'm a part of that community. And so, that's why, I'm really excited about, serving on the elementary side.
Yeah. And again, much appreciated, because it's necessary and is needed. So how, as a counselor, right, as a school counselor, what are some ways you see that parents and teachers, or parents, teachers, and administrators can work together, right, to help alleviate some of these stressors for these children, and even for maybe some of the staff members, just for everybody. Like from a counselor's point of view, what are some ways that we can all come together and just be a community in this
Yeah.
space?
Everyone is coming to the table with usually the right intentions in mind. Everyone is there to support the child. Sometimes we're not always on the same page, and that can be counterproductive. But when we can kind of get our egos out the way, and we all can kind of learn and listen to each other, it's a beautiful dynamic. Um, whenever we have parent meetings, we can listen. As a counselor, I'm listening to the parent, I'm listening to the teacher, I'm listening to all those who are involved in that child's life. And when we can come together and come up with a plan, then the child has the best support to support them through their educational journey. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm oftentimes having to look for outside resources for some of our families, whether it's looking for therapy services, or if they need clothes, food. Sometimes I even act as a social worker. So that is the key point. I'm in the middle. I'm like the heart of the school. I mediate, I advocate. I'm even there to listen to parents. I've had parents that cry on my shoulders. So again, we all should be in it together. I would say to families, don't shy away from looking for, or using your school as a key point of support. We have a lot of resources. We don't have all the resources, but we can point you into the direction where you can get those needs met if need be.
Wow. That's so good. I'm glad that you presented that invitation to parents to come in that way. Because sometimes, when you're on the inside, they may think it's just for the kid, it's just for the school, but
Hmm.
not knowing that as a parent, as a family, they can also come to their school counselor for resources and support as well. Because, again, everybody doesn't know, and it depends on the area that you're in, where it could be a small town, or sometimes even large cities. If it's something that you don't have experience with or haven't had, enough access to, you don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, even if it is something that you need. So knowing that the most central location, your child or children already attend this school, you can ask the school counselor, you can ask, school administrator for those types of resources. So definitely thank you for sharing that. And so, like I said in the beginning, the connotations about this generation is such a negative one, right?
Hmm.
And we talked about this the other day, but what conversation would you have with our generation, right? And Yeah, what conversation would you have with our generation or the generation even before us that like to say this generation is lost, this generation, I heard going to hell in a band handbasket, I heard this is a lost generation. First of all, I guess let's talk about the emotional damage that can be done to the generation that's hearing that. Like, what conversation
Yeah.
would you have to talk about that?
Well, I definitely have to check myself because I've been in error of that too. But one thing I'm aware of is that this generation has gone through something that my generation has never gone through, and that's COVID. And so for sure, we can all say hands down, they got us beat with that. And they have definitely, they're coming to school and they're showing up, even my own children with the side effects of COVID. Yeah, we went through a lot as kids, but within our communities and within our society, we may or may not have gone through as much as what they faced with COVID. Um, so just being mindful that some of the ways that they're reacting, they're responding as a result of what they have gone through with COVID. Also, having access to social media, they have access to see and hear a lot of the tragedies that we have faced in our country um, and around the world. So, all of that plays a part in how they feel, why we may deem them as being a weaker generation. Um, you know, we see now kids wanting to wear their hoodies all the time. We're like, okay, it's hot outside. Why do you have your hoodies on?
Yes,
And I had
yes.
to research that. I had to ask my son, why are you all wearing your hoodies? Please help me understand. And he said, it makes me feel safe. It makes us feel safe. I don't feel as anxious when I have my hood on. So just really trying to dive in and understand. It's easy to have judgment for other people or other groups of people, and that includes our Gen Zs, Gen Z generation. Is it Gen Z? Yeah, Gen Z generation. So I think there's a lot to be yet learned, um, not just for what COVID did for to us, but to them too, because they are entering into their adult years, our Gen Z's generation. Some of them, I think, may already be young adults, and helping and supporting them build that confidence. I know a lot of teenagers right now are afraid of what the future holds. And honestly, you have adults that feel that way. That we're living in some really uncommon times or some uncertainties. And so this is a time where instead of speaking negative to our youth and seeing them as a weaker generation, this is a time where we can begin to build up our youth and help support them, give them vision, speak life into them, um, guide them, give them direction. Because we do know they'll be taking care of us in our older years. So we don't want to we want to definitely make sure we take good care and that we are mindful of what we are speaking into their lives. So,
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing the answer for the hoodie situation. So, parents, I know y'all want to know, they want to be musty because I mean, we really need to understand, like,
yeah, yeah.
why, baby, it's 90 degrees out here and you got your hoodie on, but that makes so much
Mhm,
sense, right? Because a lot of them, when they wear it, the strings, they'll pull it,
mhm,
and I guess
mhm.
it can feel like a covering for
Yeah,
their bodies, a layer or a level of protection. Wow.
absolutely. Yeah.
The more you know, and also speaks to why we can't be so quick to judge, not even for children, because again, they're working through their own big and small emotions, and being separated from your family, like with COVID, you couldn't even go and visit your own family, right? Like or visiting them could run the risk of them losing their life, and some family members are no longer here because of visits, innocent visits from family members that they love, and they contracted COVID, and they're no longer here. So
Hmm. Hmm.
as a child, and you just think you got the whole life ahead, because we lost children as well, you think you got the whole life ahead of you, and somebody come around, give you a hug, and then boom, that's scary. Like you said,
Yeah.
even for adults. um she said them babies be moist in them hoodies. Yeah, they I know they got to, but it definitely does help knowing why
The
they'll
why.
deal with why they'll
Yeah.
deal with that little moisture.
Yeah.
So But I wanted to bring that up and I wanted to say that again because I'm an advocate. I've always been an advocate, because I too was the one looking for somebody to say something for me. I too was the one who didn't feel like
Mhm.
I had a voice, or even
Mhm.
if I had it, where can I use it? What can I say? Where can I say it? And so, being able to talk to our generation, and again, I don't do the y'all and them and they, we all in it together. So speaking to our generation, who are the parents, and then the generations before us, who are the grandparents, they can hear us, right?
Mhm.
We're the same generation that says to these, life and death is in the power of your tongue. Why would you call them lost like that without talking about ways to bring them back in? They're going to have to be brought back in, right? They're going to have to be guided back to some safe place, to some level of, sanity, if you will. So I wanted to make sure that we had this conversation about it out
Mhm.
loud because, again, I hear it, I see it, and this is not even judgment to the ones that say it, because I get it. These kids can do some frustrating stuff, and it just makes you wonder, like, what's what's going on up here? Like, are you even thinking at all? So, but I just want us to also be mindful and to always be mindful that
Yeah. Because if
our
you think about it, we had the freedom of exploring the world when we were younger. We didn't really have to have our parents guide our every way. This generation, they can't really explore like we could. In some communities, you're concerned about gun violence. Um, if not a lot of communities nowadays, you're afraid of them being kidnapped. And kids sense that and they hear that. We talk about how they just want to sit up on their laptops where they don't really have any other option, really. Um, and so they feel the baggage and the weight of this generation. My youngest daughter, she said, "Mom, I wish I grew up in the 90s." And I hate that she said, it really hurts my heart because I want her to be excited about the time she's living in,
mm,
so, and I can understand the challenge of that. There are times where I go back and I think, and a lot of people have said that, oh, I miss, whatever generation, 70s, 80s, not, I miss the old music. I miss this. But I just say this is an opportunity where God has given us a space to find an answer, create an answer, you know, create something. This is a space where it looks dead, but it's an opportunity.
come on, dry bones.
Right.
Come on, dry bones. We need to be
Yeah.
speaking some life into them dry bones because
Yeah.
they have to live, right?
Right.
These babies deserve a fair chance at life, and there are
Hmm.
so many things that go into it. Because also, quite honestly, and I have a very diverse social media space. I hear all kinds of conversations. Sometimes I have to even pull back because of the amount of information that I take in. But at one point, I was on the deconstructing side of TikTok, right, where everybody was like, "We ain't going back to church, and the church this, and the church done that," and like we cutting it.
Right.
But these people are also 30 and 40 years old, and these are their children who are caught up in this push and pull of the parents saying, I don't believe in this no more. I'm not going back this way. I'm not doing things that way. And so the children suffer. Like, whether we wanted to or not, our parents and grandparents made us go to church. So
Hmm.
a lot of us have that solid enough of a foundation where either we met our friends there, we that's where we hung out with our cousins. Like, church was safe to an extent for a lot of us, right? And but,
Hmm.
but it was a common place for us. They don't even have that common place for, like, because for 2 years they couldn't go to school. You couldn't leave
Right.
your You couldn't go to school. You couldn't go visit your friend. And so they got caught up in our generation trying to figure out who and what we believe and where we're going to serve if we're going to serve. Do you think, because that pulls them away from God? Because quite honestly, if you're deconstructing from the church structure you grew up in, you're probably not talking about God the way that we grew up talking about it. So now your children don't hear it, right?
Hmm.
They don't necessarily have the access to it. So you think that that could be a part of why they're so carefree or careless, the children?
Hmm. I can't speak in general, But I can say that it was a struggle for me, for our family, when we came out of COVID and transitioning back to church. We had got so used to doing church at home. We got used to seeking God on our own, which was a good thing to a certain degree. You need to have those foundational, um, practices in place. But when it was time to begin to congregate back into the church, it was like, oh, I wanted it so much because I wanted my children to experience community. I did not want them to come up and think that it's okay just to take care of what's within these four walls of our home. I wanted them to understand that you're a part of community and that we should serve other people and that we should not be selfish with our time, with our finances, and things of that nature. So we did little by little begin to get back out into a church community. And I'm sure a lot of families struggle in that way as well. Again, community is very important. Now, children really need community. They need friends. One thing that COVID took away again was the social gathering, and you mentioned that. So we are back now, and we should be advocating and supporting our kids with, being a part of whatever extracurriculum activities schools have to offer. Looking into your community. And I say this wholeheartedly because I work with students who deal with depression, spending way too much time alone, on their cell phones or in their rooms, not getting enough activity. And so that's one piece that I do advocate for families to make sure that that they're being mindful. Suicide ideations is something that I'm seeing an increase in. Kids as young as first grader coming saying that they want to kill themselves. They want to see God. I'm seeing kids cutting themselves. So although this might be language that they might have heard other friends say, this is language that I know I did not hear or see when I was in elementary, when I was in middle school, when I was in high school. So we are seeing this now with kids more and more. So,
wow. First grader saying, "I want to see God," like having suicidal thoughts. Wow, at first grade,
yes,
the happiest
absolutely.
time, right? When you should be coloring and eating crayon, and
Yeah.
laying in the glue and all of that. But it's real,
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of times in our culture too, from our generations and those past, we didn't get to be depressed, right? You depressed them dishes is about as close as it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you depressed for? You ain't got no job, you don't pay no
Right.
bills. Why are you depressed?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's just not true. Like you just said, that's not true. With respect to each generation having their own challenges, with respect to each generation having their own promises, right? Let's be fair in what these children are experiencing and what they have experienced. There's really no need to compare, right? One generation to the next, saying this one is less because of that. You see what you had. And if it's something that's missing, which it is, like you said, a lot of these children, they don't get outside like that. And when they do, they take their phones outside. There's
Mm-hmm.
no running around. Like I remember us eating off the tree, literally
Mm-hmm.
eating fruit from the tree. I remember us shelling peas on the porch, right, at my grandma's
Mm-hmm.
house, making tea on top of the house. Like you get the tea bags, put them in a jar, and you let the sun brew your tea. You know what I'm saying? To
Wow.
us, it was like, this is just what we do. But imagine if these children could come up out of the electronic space, come up out of the far away space. Because as close as social media and the cell phone can make you seem, it really pushes us far away from each other, pushes us far and far away from reality.
Mm-hmm.
So to have the children outside, to get the pear off, I don't even see pear trees. Do they? I don't even see pear trees anymore.
I don't know about St. Louis. We might have some pear trees. I'm not for sure.
Mississippi, we still got pear trees because, honey, we had pear trees. We would get the pear off the tree. Berries, like getting berries out of the bushes,
Right.
like that's how I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids, they just don't have it. And I don't want to say that as to say that made us better than them, but because it's an experience. It's a connecting with earth, it's a connecting with yourself, you know what I'm saying? And it's a connecting with reality. So as parents who came from those generations, I don't know who got pear trees, but if you can find a pear tree, a plum tree, you know, pecan tree, take those
Mm-hmm.
kids out there.
Mm-hmm.
She says a pear tree, not a pair of trees, a pear, 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 Nancy, tree. Take those kids outside and let them, explore nature. And it's one of the most healing places.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when I'm having not such a good day, especially in the summertime, I'll just go outside and I stand, I sit, or I lay in the sun until
Yes.
I don't need to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel replenished. I feel good. I feel better. I feel happy. And then too is vitamins. Like you get
Right.
vitamins from the sun for us
Right.
anyway. So we're parents. We get to make the decisions about things like that. We get to introduce them to it. Some things they're gonna resist because they're not familiar with it. But you're the parent
Mm-hmm.
and you know the benefits of it. So introduce it to them in a way that don't feel like a chore or you're gonna get beat if you don't go outside and stand in the sun, but teaching them,
Mm-hmm.
giving them the opportunity to see the benefits of nature, and the
Absolutely. Yeah.
of community.
Are you hear? I'm sorry.
Somebody got excited. I think it's a game or something on, huh?
Well, as we're talking about social media and games, that would be my son that I've asked to make sure he was quiet while I was on live. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. Listen, Mental Health Monday is real, it's relatable, and it's resourceful. And look at that. We're talking about family ties and we're talking about how real it is. And you see the reels on social media, you see the TikToks and all of these things, these perfect 15 minutes, 15 seconds, 60
Mm-hmm.
seconds, or whatever it is, of families and the pictures and all these things that
Yeah.
look so good. But sometimes it's not like that.
Right. That's true.
Sometimes it's us trying to have such a conversation and somebody's excited in the other room. Family is a lot. It takes a lot to be a family. It takes a lot to build a family, but it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah.
Absolutely worth it.
I know. I was thinking about. I think research says that if a child has at least one supportive parent or one supportive adult in their lives, their chances of survival and being successful, um, and overcoming those adverse childhood
Aces.
traumas and things like that, they are at lower risk. So as long as because sometimes we say, well, I'm a single parent, or because I was raised by a single mom, and then at some point I went to go live with my dad, so he was a single dad. So I had support, and I did have my first child at 19 years old, but there was so much other things that I could have been involved in, but because I did have I'm a single mom at some point up to 13, who was a hardworking mom who provided and who made sure our house was clean, although she was working many hours, and then I had my single dad I went to go live with when I was 13 years old. Being a single parent is very difficult. Community may not be what community used to be, but again, if we as the parent can find some way to keep our children engaged, I think that's the most important thing that you can do. Giving them something else to believe in. If you're not a Christian, because I teach my children my faith base, and having something else to believe in beyond their natural abilities,
Hmm.
having someone or something beyond this physical world. Because yes, times are a little challenging, but knowing that they can overcome is very important. They may not have the resilience that we had other generations. Every generation. I'm thinking. I want to say the Bible said, I could be misquoting that. Every generation loses as weaker or something like that, but we gain more wisdom or something like that. I could be wrong about that scripture. I want to, if I could Google it. But
Ugh,
even
me
though
too.
every generation prior to us might have been a little bit more stronger in this, and we know that our parents, they were a lot stronger than when we were. I have to admit to that. However, you know if we put those certain factors into place and making sure that our kids have the support that they need, they'll overcome too.
weaker and wiser. That's what it says.
Yeah.
um, yeah. And I believe, and just like in all community spaces, even especially in the family unit, you got to take the good, the pros, the benefits. You know what I'm saying? You got to take those things and cultivate from those things. What was good from my generation? What's good from that generation? What's good in this
Yeah.
generation? And you put those things together and you
Mhm.
continue to create more and more healthier generations. You know,
Yes.
there is something good that's going to come out of each one, right? Especially
Mhm.
if the child comes from you, right?
Absolutely.
If the child comes from you. And I don't want us to lose the sanctity and the value of family. I know when I was working in Memphis, um, I heard some very heartbreaking stories about families. You know, I had one young lady who told me, she said, Miss Dorsey, I can't even go on my mama's street. My mama has a restraining order against me. And she told me the nature of the situation, why. And there was absolutely no reason to put a restraining order on your child. But it happens. You know, I have cousins. I got more cousins than the law allowed, right? Aunties, uncles, and that's both ways, maternal and paternal. And I am absolutely grateful that I have such a large family and such a, close knit family, just like any family. I want to say to all families in the world, your family ain't the only family that got a little drama and a little trauma. Okay.
Right.
We
Mhm.
all surviving our family tree. How about that? Get a shirt that says surviving my family tree. We're all doing that. However, you know, the fact that there is somebody that we may fight over here at grandma's house. We might fight each other at grandma's house. But when we leave grandma's house, they knew one thing about my family. And Shaw, you can't come to grandma's house and try to fight not one of us, because you're gonna have to fight all of us. You know what I'm saying? So there are benefits to having family. There's benefits if you're sick and you're hurt and something happens to you. People die in nursing homes or in their own homes, and they're dead for days. Nobody's checking on them. Nobody thought about them. My mama got one time to go a whole day, and I call her multiple times, and she ain't call me back, and they ain't answering it.
Mhm.
She ain't got but that one good time, and then I'm gonna call and say, "What's going on with you?" You know, it's a blessing to have people in your life that care about you like that. And so I just don't want us to lose it. And I know sometimes in every generation, people have gone to the streets. Gangs ain't new, right? It's not a new thing. And they call each other family. These gangs call themselves, look, I ain't no gang member, don't come. I'm just saying. But they call themselves family, right? They call themselves family, and some of them leave their birth families and and they go out into the street families.
Mhm.
I just don't want us to lose the sanctity of it. I don't want us to lose the benefit of family, of husband and wife and children, or just husband and wife, because maybe you don't want children. But if you're married and you're sick, there's somebody there to take care of you. You know, when you're married or when you're in a relationship, at the end of the day, at the end of a long work day, there's somebody to call or come home to and share that day with. Like, you have friends, but as life progresses, each friend's life progresses, and sometimes it does it that way, and their goal is to be present in their own life, right? And so if I'm not coming home to you, if I'm not sharing space with you all the time like that, then there goes loneliness, and even that has increased. COVID has caused, upticks in anxiety for people that have never felt it. So some people don't even leave their house. So they
Yeah.
don't visitors. They don't go visit anybody. They don't go to their appointments. You can order almost everything to your house. Your grocery, your food, your clothes. You don't have to leave home. You can see your doctor from the house. You can work your job from the house. So you don't even have to leave home. And so people live in this isolated bubble and isolated space where we miss out on one main and major connection, and that's other people. That's other people. Community is vital, community is essential, and community is important. I'm just there.
Yes.
I preach
I'm
about
thinking
it.
about this scripture. God says that He'll put the lonely in a family. Um, don't know the verse. He'll put the
Right there,
lonely in the with a family. You can look that up and give us the scripture if you want to. Um, but It is, you have to, even as adults, we have to face our fears. Going into isolation and feeling like I don't want to be hurt again, or maybe you have some social anxieties, and you feel safer, more safe at home because of things that we're hearing. I would say the same thing to an adult as I would a student or a kid. You have to face your fears. You have to have purpose. You should always have a vision for yourself, no matter how old you are, or no matter, if you feel that you have outlived some situation or circumstance, you're still here on earth for a purpose and for a reason. And so, again, we need each other. We need community. I'm definitely, over the last couple of years, have had to come out of my comfort zone because I know I have purpose and vision, and God has a plan. And so I tend to be more on the introvert side. But as God was calling me into school counseling and to as a therapist, it required me to go back to school. It required me to meet new people. So again, COVID did create this sense of isolation. It created this sense of social anxiety in some cases, but we have to continue to face our fears and continue to press forward so that we can continue to sharpen each other.
That's it. That is it. You couldn't have told me that I was going to be hosting no podcast talking out loud to people in front of other people. Who,
Right.
me? No, not me. But, life has a way. Life has a way of putting you exactly where you need to be. And again, community. Community is vital. And so I want to encourage any student, any young adult, especially young adults. I know 3 6 Mafia got the son, nobody needs nobody. But then they do say all I need is me and my dogs, right? So you gotta have somebody. And I know a lot of times that the children will intentionally live this, or think they want to live this lonely life, this isolated life. I don't fool with nobody. I just be by myself. It's a dangerous space because when the enemy put those thoughts in your mind and they come up, some you don't have control over all the thoughts that come in your mind, but you have control of the ones you allow to stay, the ones you allow to take root. So you could be minding your business, and then a seed is planted into your mind. You could be watching a movie, listening to a song, something comes in your mind and your heart. If there's not a friend there where they hear you saying these things to yourself, or they hear you saying these things out loud to speak against that, right? Especially if it's not going to be a benefit to you, or if you have something good and there's not a friend there to kind of like pump you up and strengthen you. Those things are important. Affirmation is important.
Absolutely.
Affirmation is it ain't just in romantic relationships. Your family should be telling you, you got this, you can do this, I believe in you, I see you, I support you, I stand with you, you're doing good, you're looking good. Those things are important, from children to adults. Affirmation is necessary and affirmation is good. So our family is the first place we learn how to do all the things that we know how to do: love, hate, give, take. All the things that we learn how to do, we learn them in our family first. And so family matters. Being a school counselor, you get to see from the very small ages at elementary school what some of these children are experiencing. So to hear a first grader say, I want to go see God, like what was the reason behind that? Like they were just having a bad day, something happened?
There was something that happened with him and his mom. There's some things that were taking place at home. He was afraid, maybe of some consequences. I don't know all of the full dynamics, but one of the hardest parts of being a counselor is if you think that a student is in harm's way, you have to report it. So, sometimes it's not whether or not I know all the facts. If I feel that there is potential harm, sometimes it's up for Child Protective Services to do a full investigation. So sometimes I don't know all the ins and outs. I'll know just enough that would make me or give me that inclination that I need to report. So, but a lot of times it is because things are going on, and sometimes it could be just the kids' level of fear. And I want to say this: sometimes when kids, again, needs are not being met consistently, if a child is going long periods of times without their immediate needs being met, that puts them in true danger. So if they're shelter or food, or if they don't have clothes, or and then one of the key things I like to mention is a sense of belonging. That is a
Mhm.
need. Love and affection, that is needed. Sometimes we think as parents, because we're just providing the bare necessities and we're doing our part that we should be doing. And I know I grew up in that generation. Well, you got food, you got everything, but maybe a child is lacking that attention, or they're lacking that affection, that care. So I oftentimes see students that come to me because they feel like their parents don't love them. um, so just keeping those things in the forefront when you are engaging the youth.
Wow. Essentially, be present, guys. Like, have a heart. Like, when you deal with children, you got to be wise too, because they're people, they little people, but they people. They'll try to play you, but for the most part, you know, I love children. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I love children, the little people. And I know the ones that like to play games, and I'll play the game with them. But then there are so many other little children, unfortunately, just like you said, they just want to belong. That's why they like giving hugs. You give one of them a hug. I want a hug too. I want a hug too. I want a hug too. So you like Santa Claus out there giving hugs, but take a minute for that. Take a minute for that, y'all. And I know
Yeah.
sometimes.
I'm
No,
sorry.
you go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know sometimes people think that, oh, it seems that this generation is so unapproachable. There are some in each generation, some people you just should not approach, but it's all in the approach. Just because this is a young adult or a person that's old enough to be your child, you never approach this child in a disrespectful way, especially if you don't already have a relationship with them. That's the other thing. You know, you can't really rebuke or chastise somebody you don't have a relationship with.
Hmm.
Who are you to be telling me what to do with my life? Who are you for me to listen to? I don't know you. And then with the way that you approach me and share it with me, you shut it down immediately. And so sometimes out of fear or frustration, like I said, when I first started raising my child, a lot of times it was out of fear, and he just was not getting the best result. I wasn't either. We were not getting the best results out of it, because it wasn't even something I wanted to do. Right. So just be mindful in the approach was what I wanted to say.
Yeah. And also, as parents, I want to just leave with this. I know our time is probably running. My time here is probably running out. Self-care is very important as a parent. Um, Taking care of yourself, your mental health, your spiritual health, all aspects of who you are is so important, because then you can give back to your kids. You can't give them anything that you do not have.
That's it.
Um, they follow our leads. So if you don't want your kids cursing, then you may not need to curse. If you don't like your kids throwing tantrums, then that means we need to learn we need to increase our self-regulation, calming strategies. If we, whatever it is, we need to exemplify that behavior. And one of the ways that we can do that is taking good care of ourselves.
That's so good to close on. That's so good to wrap it up with. Self-care, and sometimes it's taking a minute to literally breathe. We just Sometimes we don't realize how important it is to take a breath, right? Because if you've ever had a panic attack, air is like the last thing you think you're gonna have, and it is. You can't breathe. There is this, constriction in your airways and everything. So when it's overwhelming, when it's frustrating, like, go in the bathroom, turn on the water, let it run for a second. If you got a small baby, put the baby in a playpen or in a day bed somewhere that is safe. Go in the bathroom and turn on the water. You can set a timer if you want to. Count to 10. Just breathe for a
Mm-hmm.
second before you discipline your child, before you handle your child, before you approach your child, or even your significant other, or whoever's in your space, or yourself. Just take a minute to digress. Self-care is essential. Sometimes that's what self-care looks like taking a minute to breathe out all of your frustrations before you engage with the people that you love most. Okay.
That's
Oh,
good.
Thank you, Ms. Brown, Mrs. Brown,
Thank you.
so much for coming into this space and sharing from your heart and your expertise. Any closing thoughts or anything that you want to give out? Do you have like a business or anything that people would need to connect with you for?
Well, I am under supervision through Haven of Light Christian Counseling. My supervisor, Miss Lena Chapman. If you have any following questions, you can always contact me. I actually wrote the number down because I don't have it memorized. 314. You can, if you want to. Do you want me to put it in the chat or
Let me see. I can make a banner right quick. Okay. 314.
400-8497? So if you have any questions, you're looking, if you need any therapy services, you can always reach out to me on that number.
And they have to be in St. Louis.
No.
Like, because you can do like telehealth.
Well, let me say this. I don't think they have to be. Let me confirm that with my supervisor. However, as of right now, that is the number.
We have that right there. And so if you are on the live or if you have family members in the St. Louis, Missouri area who may be looking for professional mental health services in the form of therapy, there's the contact number and there's the resource for Mrs. Lisa Brown, who is on supervision to be a professional, licensed professional counselor. But right now she is an active school counselor. So thank you for, again, your hard work with the children, your hard work with your children and yourself and in the community. I appreciate you
Okay.
here. Tell your
Thank
family I
you.
said thank you for allowing this time to come into the light room and share with us the things that you have shared.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Oh, oh man. It's just so many things I be wanting to say and do and feel and all that. I love Mental Health Mondays. I love what it has grown into. I love what it stands for. I love what people are able to receive from being in this space. I appreciate those who come on as guests and share their hearts and their expertise in this field. Because when you think about mental health, again, I don't want it to become such a cliche, and I don't want it always relating to misdiagnosed or underdiagnosed mental illnesses, right? And so that's why education is one of the goals. Mental illnesses need to be diagnosed by a mental health professional, right? But you can tell when your mental health is off. You can tell when you wake up in the morning, multiple mornings, you know, consecutively, and your mood is off, things are wrong. Then you can pay attention to yourself because, like I said, everybody won't go to therapy. Everybody won't. But you can do the due diligence of keeping track of your moods, keeping track of what's going on in your life that may raise your stress levels, what's going on in your children's life, you know, that could be causing them some type of stress. Being a parent should not be taken lightly. Now, how we become parents is a whole nother conversation that we probably should have at some point if we're honest about it, right? We probably should have that conversation. The younger and the sooner the better, but becoming a parent is life changing in more ways and for more reasons than one. But you have a certain amount of time to make the highest level impact in another person's life when you become a parent. You have a certain amount of time to make the highest level of impact in a person's life. What you do in that amount of time and how that impact extends, it depends on what you're pouring into them when they're children. You have their ear, you have their hearts when you are parenting them, when they're small, when they have to do what you say, when they have to do what they see you do, because they're going to become adults and they're going to make their own decisions. Same thing you did when you got out of your mama's house, right? It's no different. Your children are going to grow up and see life through their own lenses. And you just have to pray and hope that the seeds that you've planted, the things that you were able to pour into your children, manifest into a life that serves God and it serves them well and those that are around them. It can't always be how you want the child. Like living vicariously through your children is just not, it's just not what you should do. If you're still alive, you can live your own life, right? You can live your own later life, your current life. You can't never go back to what had happened, but you can live for right now and plan for the future. You don't have to live vicariously through your children. Give them their own experience. Family is still important. Family is still an asset. Family is still valuable. Black families is still an asset. Black families are still valuable. Black children, Black fathers, Black mothers. Okay. I don't care what they saying on the social media. I don't care who doing what. There's something magnificently beautiful about a Black man and a Black woman and their Black children. Something magnificently beautiful about it. If it's not your desire, that's your choice. But if it is, don't take it lightly when you have the opportunity to be a family, to create a family. That's how we have community. That's how people become a part of the world. You had to come from somewhere. You had to come from a family. Right? You didn't just walk off the moon down here, I don't think. You came from a family. And if you know that a family can come from you, don't take it lightly. I can understand how God would confine sex, such a spiritual practice, to the confines of marriage. It needs to be protected. You create entire generations when you have sex and you procreate and make children. You create entire generations. That's the one act that human being, like that's the one thing you can do as a human being to make a whole another generation. Don't take that lightly, sir. Don't take that lightly, ma'am. Protect yourself. Protect your future. Because the generation that you're identifying as lost, the generation you're identifying as wayward and wicked, is the generation that's going to have to serve you your food, the generation that's going to have to give you your meds, the generation that's going to have to sell you your house. All these things you will no longer be able to do because you now went on to another stage in life. While you have a chance to have their ear, to have their heart, speak life into this generation and generations to come. Okay? We cannot do this alone. We should not do this alone. We were not created to do this alone. Okay? This has been Mental Health Monday. I am your host, Marquita Dorsey, mental health advocate and coach. Take care of yourself. Okay? Learn, find it, do it, learn it. Pinterest, YouTube, Google, so many resources. Go to your school counselor, go to your church counseling or mental health resource services that they may have. Go to your community centers. Be intentional about your own self. Your children are watching. A tree is known by the fruit it bears. What you popping out? Apple trees, oranges. What are you doing? Take care of yourself. All right. Be the best example because you are the prime example. Happy April. Good night.